All right, folks, we're going to go ahead and get started. So, welcome to the first day, I guess, of CES conferences. And this is the digital Hollywood portion. I'm going to take my glasses off so I can actually read today. My name is Mark Kapczynski. I'm going to be your moderator for this panel. The panel is going to focus on social media and kind of the state of where we're at with social media, as well as kind of what are the trends from last year that we're carrying forward into this year. And just in general, how are we seeing the role of social media as part of branding, influencers, marketing, and basically driving consumer awareness of things. So if you guys want plenty of seats, can you see us okay from over there? Okay. Just saying hi over to the East Coast. So again, welcome everyone. Thanks for making it. And we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to ask each of the panelists first to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about who they are and their background, and then we'll kind of dive right into things. Okay? So Ashley, I'm going to ask you to go first.
Testing. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Ashley Menschner. I'm the SVP of Media at the Ad Council. For those of you that are not familiar with the Ad Council, we are a leading nonprofit that uses the power of communications to drive social change. So we bring together the brightest minds in the creative, advertising, tech world to come together to address the most pressing social issues of our time. So we just launched our biggest effort in 2020 for the COVID vaccine education campaign. We're about to launch our next big pillar initiative for mental health in the spring. I'm really excited to be here today.
Thanks, Ashley. Appreciate it. Andre.
Lovely. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. My name is Andre Jones. I am a digital media agent at the William Morris Endeavor Agency within the home of the Endeavor global company. So my primary focus is being a digital talent agent to our crossover talent, our music artists, our influencer talent, and that is finding new monetization opportunities on platforms, doing deals for them in the branding space. If it's an audio deal or a podcasting deal, we'll cover that for them as well. We're leaning a lot into the Web3 gaming space as well. And it's really just about trying to educate some of our traditional clients as well, right? So a lot of our people are still focused on their day-to-day jobs and they just see the world of social media and they know it's out there and they know it's available to them. Maybe they're looking at it solely as a marketing tool. My job is to get them to use it as a revenue driver as well.
Awesome.
So super
Welcome.
excited. Thank you.
Ed, you're replacing Tanya Yuki, so we appreciate you
filling
in.
So I am not
today.
Tanya Yuki.
Same company, though.
Yeah, surprise. But Ed Hannigan, Senior Vice President of Sales with ComScore. Joined ComScore a year ago, and the previous company I was with, Shareably, got acquired, largely focused on the social measurement side of things, now merging that with ComScore's digital TV data sets for a more unified view of the consumer, and excited to be on the panel and talk about measuring what matters.
Thanks. You're going to also be our stat guy today, right?
Stat guy.
Stat guy. Danielle, welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. I'm Danielle Johnson-Carr. I head up strategy and content for Magnet, which is our in-house agency at Team Whistle. If you're not as familiar with Team Whistle, we are a sports publisher, entertainment publisher, as well as entertainment lifestyle. And I have joined the organization about a year ago to bring on a social agency offering. So what we do is we work with sports, entertainment companies, as well as brands to create social content, community build out, really focusing on short form, as well as working with the creator space. So bringing in macro, micro influencers and talent to really help brands, entertainment, and sports organizations tell their stories to consumers.
Awesome. Well, welcome, Danielle. Anthony.
Hey, everybody. Whoa. I'm apparently very loud.
Anthony Alfaldano. I run B2B marketing and audience insights for Fandom. Not sure how many of you in the audience are familiar with Fandom. You may or may not be, but I can almost 100% guarantee that you've all been on our site many, many, many times. The core of our platform is hundreds of thousands of wikis that detail every corner of virtually every imagined universe out in the world. So Star Wars, Game of Thrones, Fortnite, you name it. If it's a franchise and entertainment that fans are into that they want to get deeper on, we've got content that's been built out by fans about that entertainment. We help people go deeper on their interests. Huge platform, 350 million people use us on a monthly basis. So we see tons of user demand out in market. And as for me personally, I've been in B2B sales enablement for years. Love to kind of track trends that are going on in the industry, figure out solutions using our platform. So I'm excited to talk a little bit about the trends we're seeing in social.
Awesome. Well, welcome everyone. And thank you guys again for participating today. Most of these panels are like 40 minutes, so we're just going to keep going right through this, right up to the end of our time here. So if you do have questions, save them for the end. We'll try to see if we have time for them. Otherwise, we can talk with folks afterwards. So the focus of the panel is around social media, and that can certainly mean a lot of different things. And we had a prep call, and everyone kind of came with a different point of view, and everyone had a different category of social media and influencer and type of brands that they were working with. And I thought it was maybe the best way for us to start by asking each of you to kind of talk about the different categories of influencers and how you're using social media in different ways to either reach an audience or expand what you're trying to do and expand your reach, and maybe highlight some of the successes you've had. So Ashley, I'm going to ask you to go again first, and we'll kind of move it around after.
Yeah, I could start. So like I said, the Ad Council, we're all about addressing the most pressing social issues that's happening right now in the country. So all of our campaigns are brought to life through donated media. So we work with all of our platform partners like Meta or Google, Snap, to bring our campaigns to life that makes sense in a really authentic way on platform. So a really good example and case study that I like to share is for our COVID vaccine education campaign. How we use social and how we use media is through creators, through trusted messengers to bring those campaigns to life. So there was so much misinformation out there, and what we weren't trying to get people to go out and get the vaccine. We were trying to educate people on make the best decision for yourself, but make sure that you're getting educated on what actually the vaccine is. And so what resonated on Meta was very different than what resonated on Snap. And so we were able to tap into different influencers and messengers through those platforms but bring factual information to them through the platform. So again, we're reaching communities where they are. So we might have leaned into in rural communities, leaning into farmers in the local community and pairing them on Meta with a live Q&A with a medical expert that might be from a local pharmacy in Alabama. And they're talking about the messaging around, what is the vaccine? Where do you get information on to find out whether or not it's right for your family? And then point them to getvaccineanswers.com to understand, and learn more about the vaccine for them and their family. So we really lean into, through our Creators for Good program, both micro and macro influencers, who's going to resonate with the audiences on those platforms, and then build really integrated campaigns that have an authentic voice on those platforms. So that's kind of how we do what we do. And again, it really varies by platform. On Twitch, we've done a lot of activations where we have a live streamer who has a personal connection to one of our campaigns. So we have a Veterans Crisis Prevention campaign. And so this year we paired with a Twitch streamer that was a veteran that could talk about the issue and how he was struggling, and how, there's a lot of resources out there through the VA and through the Ad Council's campaign to get the help that you need. And so organically talking about the message while he was streaming a live game to his trusted audience, it goes such a long way. And we saw incredible lift on the website. We saw, much bigger results through that. So that's kind of how we do what we do, and how we're leaning into the various platforms to bring to life our messages.
Quick follow-up.
Yeah.
Are the influencers and the talent that you use compensated in any way? Because you mentioned the media is free.
Yeah.
But do you pay the talent and the influencers?
We have started to. So definitely the micro influencers and our partnerships with smaller up and coming, but celebrity talent, they want to help, right? So Billie Eilish was one of our messengers for our Seize the Awkward mental health campaign, because she struggled with mental health. They don't want to be paid. They just want to give back. So it really depends, but it's case by case.
Got it. Thank you. Andre, tell us a little bit about some of the categories. I know you brought up some interesting things on our prep call.
Yes.
A different point of view.
I'll try to remember them.
Yeah.
No, one of my things was the kind of the creative verticals that we work with within our agency. Specifically, you always had, and you've had for a long time, beauty, lifestyle, fashion, kind of the traditional influencer creator worlds we see that the tier one platforms and Meta were offering to us. Photos, videos, but now so much more. We're seeing more professional creators coming out of the woodwork. Right, you have creators on LinkedIn who may be CEOs or CMOs or young entrepreneurs or founders, right? That, you know, an agency like ours would want to represent because they're building a business, they have an audience, they have a podcast, they have a massive newsletter, right? Like, you know, if you could rep Ben Thompson before it was what it was for his newsletter, that's incredible. So I think, you know, the verticals are changing ever so quickly. You have more entrepreneurs becoming creators. You have more business owners and founders in that professional vertical. And then you even have some people not knowing that they're becoming a creator. You know, someone, kind of a fun example on TikTok that I'm following, that I'm trying to go to her donut shop while I'm here, is it, you know, just a mom who's opened a donut shop recently, and she sells out within hours every morning. And the traffic is because people are just seeing her on the app and she's building a following. Her business is not being a TikTok creator. Her business is selling donuts. So it's kind of wild and fun that she's leaned into this TikTok world and leveraged her brand to meet with, you know, celebrity artists and, you know, music artists. So now every time I have a client playing at Allegiant Stadium or T-Mobile Arena, you know, we kind of make the connection to, oh, it'd be great for her to make donuts for that artist in the green room. And then it's like a big viral campaign.
So what's the donut shop?
The donut shop, I got to remember what it is. It's saved in my draft, so I don't
No,
know.
oh,
exactly
come
what
on.
it is. I know.
You're just
I'm
keeping it to yourself.
gatekeeping. Am
so
I
it doesn't sell
gatekeeping
out.
or what?
You have to have that with
It opens
the
at 10. They sell out by 11, guys.
We have
but-
to follow you together.
Exactly.
Okay.
But
All
my
right.
second part answer was just really also, you know, depending on the usage of that creator, right? So
Yeah.
some creators are doing it too strictly gain a following, monetize that audience, make money, like you mentioned. And then others, I think, truthfully are doing it because they want to build a community and they want to gain an audience that will follow them, right? Not just buy what they sell, but also just, you know, kind of move with them as well, which I think is exciting.
Thanks, Andre. Ed, can you talk a little bit about some of the categories and some of the things that you're seeing with your lens from ComScore? I mean, you have so much data.
Definitely. Yeah,
Must be
definitely going to come at
fascinating.
it from a different lens and
Yeah.
having a live look into all of the branded content taking place across social media. But you know, it's interesting. Formats are ever evolving. The sort of gray line between branded and organic content is coming closer together. We're looking at some interesting data that showed actions per post on branded content compared to organic content, and it was actually higher on branded content. Right. So you think about the partnerships that a lot of people are working on the panel here coming to life in authentic ways, whether that's macro or micro influencers. It is moving the needle and working in a positive way. And that's just some encouraging stuff we see in the data on a weekly and monthly basis. So the short answer is keep it up. It is working. But you know, I think from a format standpoint with branded, it's the glory days of short form video right now, whether TikTok, Reels, YouTube Shorts, all you know, doing an incredible job from a branded content partnership standpoint across social and in resonating with consumers.
Are there quick follow up? Are there any particular categories of creators or influencers that you see rising or becoming more of a trend for maybe into next year?
Yeah,
Or this year?
I'm
Sorry,
late
this
in
year.
on the donut trend, but I'm going to get up on the baked goods influencer category. But health and beauty continues to drive a big chunk of it. You know, with the World Cup being this year, you know, football, soccer. We live in America. I'll call it soccer. You know, everything that's been going on around that. Obviously, the athletes as influencers themselves, whether it's Adidas, Nike, and some of the key players just had, you know, a monumental year tied to that big event and how that came to life across social. And then we see other pockets. You know, Oreo does a lot across social, and they do a great job on it. And it's usually socially focused and has a positive message around it. So dipping into the you know, snacks category, but health and beauty from an overall scale and tonnage standpoint, especially when you look at influencers' involvement with it, still drives a big slice of the pie.
Got it. Thank you. Danielle, tell us a little bit about the creators that you're working with, you're seeing, and what categories do they fall in?
Sure. I'll piggyback off of the World Cup conversation. We just worked with where we are. We work with a lot of sports players, but what we have done and we have found is that a lot, especially around Gen Z, which is like our big target audience, they actually want to learn more about the folks off the field. So they don't, they're not watching highlight reels. Some of them are, but it's mostly like what is happening through the process to get onto the field, on the pitch. How did they come up? So we do a lot of content around young athletes in sports. It's really interesting. We tell these great stories around as their families are what their families are working for and giving up for them to come into this. But leaning into the World Cup, there was just so many brands who wanted to be a part of it, but a little, worried about what was going to be happening based on what was going on. So what we were able to do was do a lot of adjacent work. So we worked with eBay to do, work with a handful of creators across different short forms so that they were telling what we like to call adjacent stories. So they weren't at the World Cup, but that didn't matter. So they were creating stories around, getting collectibles, especially with World Cup collectibles and the digital cards this year. There was just so much enough opportunity for us to tell a kind of different story through that. And that was interesting too, because we were able to bring sports, big name in sports that aren't necessarily associated with the World Cup, men's World Cup. So we worked with Carly Lloyd, who not men's World Cup, but women's World Cup. And then we worked with Victor Cruz. He's a huge fan. So there was just a really interesting way for us to use this really high level talent, go into more niche creators in the world and get them to talk about World Cup. We also worked with YouTube to have a large shorts creator partnership. So there was a lot of opportunity to tell those short form stories and go beyond what was happening, with the big win. And I think for us, it's been finding out more too, as men's World Cup just, has wrapped up, there's so much more interest, especially going into 2023 around women's World Cup. So I think for us, we're going to be investing a lot. We already are. Investing a lot of time into the sports stories around women athletes, both young and fully professional, because that's the kind of stories that at least the Gen Z audiences and millennials that we're talking to, they really want to see. And even that younger alpha category, they really want to start getting closer to people. They want the branded content to be authentic, and they want it to feel like it's something that's shareable, and it's something that they want to see in their TikTok feeds. They want to see in shorts. So that's what we've seen a lot of success with.
Terrific. Anthony.
Yeah. So I think most of what we've talked about when we talk about categories thus far is vertical. And for us, the vertical is very much focused on entertainment and gaming and talking about pop culture. But I think about categories a little bit differently because I think we have a pretty unique view into creators from anybody else on the panel. We do what everyone else would consider to be traditional partnership with influencers. We're a publisher. We do a ton of custom content. Just ran a great program for Sprite with influencers around Black Panther. So talking about the idea of legacy and how you pass along learnings from one generation to another. So we found these great artist influencers, paired them with less experienced creators, and great short form content there. That's a formula that we've used a lot and that I'm sure everyone on this panel has looked at. We're also, as a publisher, a place where we have many influencer voices on staff. So we have a brand called Giant Bomb that's entirely influencer driven. They're Twitch streamers. They have, their own kind of culture, their own merch. They have a following. But I think the thing that's most interesting and distinct for us is that we have a gigantic community of influencers and creators who are dedicated to creating the content that forms our platform. Over 1 million people on a monthly basis that come to us, that give their time freely, that edit and update and document all of their favorite entertainment. And unlike a lot of the other creators out in the economy, they're not motivated by personal profile. They're not motivated by money. In fact, we've said, hey, we'd love to share in some of the money that we get from the platform. Would that motivate you? Would that want you to be, leaning in more with our partners, more with our brand? They say, nope. We want to do this to bring the community together. We want to be a resource. And we want access, right? We want access to the IP holders. We want access to the brands that are putting out this content so that we can feel more a part of it, so that we can learn things earlier, bring that back to the community. So finding ways to activate that audience for our partners in authentic ways has been really interesting, right? Different motivations, different ways of working than people are traditionally used to, but a gigantic and really influential group of people that we have exclusive connections to.
Thanks. So kind of mixing it up a little bit here. So one of the things that I think you've all touched on is this idea of obviously content creation. And so I know on our prep call, we talked about brand led versus influencer or creator led. How are you guys seeing that shaking out? And what does that actually even mean, to be influencer led or creator led in this example? And how does that tie into working with a brand then? So maybe Andre, you want to jump in?
Yeah,
first?
I could take that one. I think, the difference between a brand-led campaign would be very much, it's kind of like a cookie cutter formula. The fact that we still have so many hashtags that every CPG company and major Fortune, blue chip Fortune brand wants to ensure like unity and uniformity, I think is, sometimes scary because, the FTC guidelines and people having to say it's partnership or having to say ad, the influencer, the creator automatically gets nervous. What is my audience going to think? What are they going to think that they know I got paid for this? They know that, or, they know there was some sort of trade in value. That would be a brand-led campaign, I would say, in my eyes, right? Influencer-led campaign, it could be a little bit different, which is exciting about, which I love the most, are like ambassadorship programs or, next up programs. Fender just launched they've had a next up program for a while, but they're looking for 25 new artists for their yearly program, right? That is not necessarily a brand-led campaign because it's given the opportunity back into the creator's hands and the influencer's hands to be a part of something and do what they want with the material, whether it's going to a couple sessions, giving them a social toolkit, but again, allowing them to kind of formulate what their post is going to be. So that's what I say about influencer campaign. And then my favorite, of course, would be UGC trends or just organic kind of like, why does that song go viral? Yes, it could be a massive, label pay out to tons and tons of micro, macro, whatever, to influencers, or it could be just, a random kid saying he likes corn on this podcast, right? And that's how we got Corn Kid, Recess Therapy, client of WME, that was just a podcast clip, and someone clipped that up, he remixed it and made it into a song and went viral. So
do you feel like, I'm curious about that, like are brands releasing the reins a little bit in terms of like that brand led? Because obviously there's so much data out there that proves they're not as effective when it's so cookie cutter and you have to say this and you have to have this call to action, where we're the complete opposite. Like Ad Council is very much creator first because we want the issue to feel authentic to you personally. Like, oh, you adopted someone from foster care. We want to hear about that. We want to hear and it's much more authentic. Like, I'm curious, are brands letting go a little?
100%. More
Okay.
and more they're letting go. The thing is, it's usually not on them. It gets to when it gets to higher ups, right? When it's like, wait, this is gonna pop. I know it is. All right, I love
That's
that
not our
idea.
color.
Let me pass it up along the food chain,
Yeah.
and then legal gets involved, and they go, oh, you can't have a Tom Brady jersey in that video.
Danielle,
I think-
did you, go ahead, Anthony.
No, I was just going to say, I think, Ed was talking about how branded content is outperforming organic content. I think one of the reasons for that is when we see it work really well, it's because the brand is creating the outline and then letting the influencer fill it in with their own personality, with the way that they want to show up in market. And that's what you want, right? Ultimately, you want that person to have the freedom to express themselves in the way that got them the followers that they have in the first place. And if you constrain them too much, if you treat it like it's a commercial shoot, it's over, right? You're going to get something that feels very formulaic, very forced, and is not going to drive the kind of engagement that you're really looking for.
Danielle?
Adding to that, I think for what we've seen work really well too is working together on, like, a lot of times a brand will be like, this will just be influencer, or this will just be the brand. And what we've been able to sort of help brands reimagine what that looks like is we do full 360s so that there's yes, this doesn't have to be a matching luggage, your short form doesn't have to be matching luggage with your TV spot. So we did something with Oikos around Super Bowl last year, and they had this great TV spot, and we were like, great, we're not going to do a 15-second and a 6-second cut down for TikTok. It makes no sense. And they were like, yeah, no, we don't want that either. So what we were able to do was create a lot of short form content from talent within it. And then we worked with creators who then sort of like told the same kind of story that was in the spot. So there was this like real 360 approach for it. And we just worked with Microsoft, which was really fantastic, where they had some amazing technology that if it was a branded spot, it would just go over so many people's heads. It just would be, and they knew that. So
Right.
we worked with 3 different kinds of creators that had a very specific connection. And we basically said to them, here's like 3 things you kind of need to just get into whatever you're doing,
Yeah.
and then make the content. So they were doing this amazing HoloLens technology where they were going into museums and seeing these like different layers. But we brought an Olympian into the Greece museum. We brought hand luggage only into the amazing museum in Spain that I'm not going to remember. But getting all this like amazing like layers. We didn't even show them the technology before they got there, because part of the whole experience was this wow when you first put on this, and so we wanted to make sure that they were even coming in and really experiencing this like any consumer would for the first time. So I think for us, it's really trying to figure out the right mix where it's not either or anymore. It's really like a full 360 intentional approach.
Yeah.
And that way we hit more touch points across the way and are going to get more consumers to understand.
Ed, did you want to jump in on
Yeah,
it?
the Corn Kid was a Chipotle commercial. We were at an event with them back in October, I think it was, and they pulled that off in 30 hours. Found the kid, shot it, had him redo it, got
many
it live
people
on
are-
social
Nice.
media.
Say everyone out
And,
here is like Googling Corn Kid right now.
I
like,
I
"Well, haven't
asked
seen
them,
that one."
Some
how'd
would
you
say
pull
he
that?
had the juice.
Yeah. I asked, how'd you pull that off? And they said, we have the most understanding legal team in the entire world, right? So
There you
it's
go.
always going to be brand led. It just comes down to how tight are the reins, and are they going to let creators and influencers run with it?
And you said Oreo before, and that's how that happened too. Like, my old agency used to work with them,
Yeah.
and that's where you get it. You have to start building the trust in the beginning, and that's where Chipotle got it. Like, you have the legal team who says, yes, just do it. You have the infrastructure that gets people where an internal team can come up with a brainstorm, reach out to talent, and get that to happen. I mean, I'm in awe of how quickly they turned that around. It was
Yeah.
amazing.
So then the question is that I have around that is, does the brand see value in all of this? Like, do they reap the benefit? I mean, I know I'm going to kind of come back to you, Andre, where you're talking about the donut lady that we don't know what store it is.
I
but we'll
promise
figure
I'll
it out.
share the address after.
But like, she's not in it, to make money on the influencer side or the social media side. She just wants people to go to buy donuts from her. Like, that's a small case, but like on a broader scale, are we seeing brands reaping the value for these different efforts that they're putting in? Maybe start with you, Andre.
Yeah, I think in a major way, right? The number one thing I see moving forward is as more creators and influencers are becoming more business savvy, and there's more and more platforms trying to kind of democratize how to get access to these brand deals.
Yeah.
There's 50 different new platforms every day that pop up, right? One thing you're definitely noticing is, oh, they got it, I didn't. Right? So they're working with that brand. I didn't. What can I do? Should I be engaging with that brand's content? Should I shoot that brand a DM? And I feel like that's even just so fascinating in a way that the brand didn't even have to talk to that influencer or reach out to that creator.
Yeah.
I got a text this morning from a creator who's hopefully not watching my panel because they're a client of mine. They're like, hey, looks like Genesis is giving out cars. And I'm like, just because you see one person post the Genesis partnership in a nice new car who's an athlete in a professional team, he wants me to go reach out and go get him a car. And it's incredible.
And you're not going to take care of your client?
Again, I had a panel first, so I have to call him after. But I think the brand won right there, right? The brand made one post, paid or not paid, gave a trade, and now kind of created this ripple effect in the community of creators saying, what's Genesis up to that I need to know about, that I maybe want to miss out on?
Ed, I want to come to you on the same question. Do you have any metrics or things that you guys are seeing that are showing that the brands are being successful by doing this, or they're reaping some benefit?
Yeah, we've measured thousands of branded content campaigns over the last years at Shareably and now into ComScore. And, we have benchmarks by category for everything. And the authentic campaigns, right, where it doesn't feel like the reins are tight around what's going on social, outperform benchmarks more often. So the brands are seeing the lift, whether that be upper funnel or down to things like purchase intent or I want my free car metric, right? bottom
we
of
see
the funnel.
positive brand sentiment, like with the
Pos-
issues. We're
yeah.
getting brands coming to us wanting to work on behalf of issues because once they measure them post campaign, like Lysol did a big campaign for COVID vaccine education, where they basically talked about bringing families back for the holidays, and it was all about our campaign, but lightly had them like cleaning in the background about like their families coming over, and they saw like 98% positive sentiment. So it's like
Yeah.
that stuff goes a long way. It's not revenue per se, but it's
Right, they become part of culture, part of the conversation, and that will have a downstream effect.
Did you want to go ahead, Danielle? And I
We've-
want to ask
Yeah,
Anthony,
we've
too.
just been hearing also a lot from brands where they've been shifting away from that like typical sponsorship model. A lot of big brands have invested in these long-term sponsorship deals, which don't always become lucrative for them because they're not getting 100% of the attribution. It doesn't feel as authentic. So this sort of like almost branded content, even promotional content, has been a lot more engaging and has helped them a lot more. So we have heard over, they're shaving that kind of big sponsorship budgets, which allows them also to get more niche in the way that they're telling the story. So I think brands have really sort of, I think, seen the light, especially in the past couple of years where big sponsorships hasn't been as beneficial just because we haven't all been going places and we haven't all been doing things. So having more niche, really focused partnerships with content and creators, it makes it a lot easier. And I think we've been seeing a lot of success with, and brands have just, that's what they want more now. So we're seeing smaller deals, but long, like ongoing and for different projects.
Anthony, what's your take on that? And then just tied to that, given that you are such a community platform, I want to ask you, how are brands seeing the benefit? Plus, how is this helping them build communities?
Sure. So I think the thing that we've seen just in terms of, how brands are realizing success and realizing ROI is that we're getting fewer and fewer of the, I want to go viral type of requests. I think people, as marketers get savvier and as they understand the space more and they see examples of what works out in space, I think the expectations coming in, the goals coming in are more realistic, more directed. And so anytime we've got a client that comes in that really knows what they want to accomplish and the type of community that they're trying to engage, I think that's a formula for a much better, more successful engagement. For our creators in particular, and the way that we, try and find, things that work, I think it comes back to that same idea of like, all right, well, what's the benefit? For a lot of the brands that we work with entertainment studios, gaming studios, and to a certain extent, they feel like they've already got their core audience. Yeah. And so there's been an education process. Well, those people are going to come see my movie. They're going to play my game, whether I partner with you or not. When the reality is, okay, great. That's one community out of 250,000 that we have. So how can we help you engage all of those other audiences that we know have crossover appeal, that are also potentially interested? How can we build hype for a program that's coming out and use all those different communities to get people's eyes on this release, to get more hype built? And I think that's where you start to really see, the light bulb go on for a lot of them. Like, okay, it's not just about my fans, my property. It's about broadening my audience. It's about hitting those people in the other places that they live as well. So that's proven to be pretty successful for us.
So one of the things that we talked about earlier on the prep call also was sort of, I'll say, maybe the negative side of influencers, and in terms of kind of like, what are their responsibilities and liabilities these days? We talked a lot of positive stuff here, but we saw very visible things related to FTX recently and being associated with different celebrities and so on. Like, so what liabilities are we seeing that influencers and creators have? Ashley, do you want to take that one first?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really great question. And I feel like I struggled with this one on the call a little bit, where it's a moral responsibility, I think, for these influencers to kind of share factual information, but that's not always happening. For us, again, it goes down to like vetted research at the beginning of the process and understanding what we're really trying to accomplish, and then bringing in influencers and trusted messengers who have a personal connection to our issues. So we don't have that problem as much as maybe a brand would. And I'd love to hear your response on this. But for us, it's they feel such like a connection to what they're trying to put out there that it's a responsibility to them, and we're not, we don't
Yeah.
have the negative backlash as much as maybe a brand would. Like, oh, why are you associated with that person who now just, got in a domestic violence situation with us? Like, we do a lot of vetting, a lot of research. So I'd love to hear your take on that, but
Go ahead,
we really,
Andre.
No, my big thing would be for collaborations, right? So many of these young creators and entrepreneurs who are building their following oftentimes collaborate with another community, another platform. Say one person's big on TikTok, but they're small on Instagram, whereas this person's small on TikTok, massive on Instagram. They would collaborate together, and their audiences are now, oh, did you not know that this person did this 4 or 5 years ago? And scroll down in their feed. Oh, this person liked to, Trump tweets back in the day. I can't believe you would collab. And it's like, and it's really hard for you to, look on the back end and say, like, you should have been aware of that. Like, you should have done your research, because then it's also saying, like, how much time and how tippy toe are you going to be with everything you do or say online? And then, is that even organic? Is that authentic at all? When it comes to working with brands, I struggle for a lot of the creators, and I feel, my job is to put opportunities in front of the clients and allow them to make the decision. I'm never supposed to make it.
Fall back on
does-
you. You're like, you made the decision.
Well, yeah, it really, and is my job is to keep the lights on and get their bills paid. So my job is to do that. So I really do feel for them sometimes, because, say, hey, they are truthfully not a big meat eater, but that beef jerky company wants them to work with them, wants to pay them a crap ton of money. That is a back to morality, I think, moral compass that they'd have to have for
We
themselves.
too sometimes will pair, like I talked about this at the beginning, like pair with a medical expert. So someone who maybe doesn't have all the factual information, but really cares about this issue, then pair them with, someone in the community that can speak to it intelligently.
Anthony?
Yeah, I mean, the creators on our platform typically are there for documentation and community. Like, there is a very negative side of, social media. I don't think we see as much of it on our platform. I think what we run into is more like dealing with IP holders who are very, very specific about how their IP is going to be represented and used, and trying to bring in influencers that we know have an audience, we know have a love for that IP to help kind of create something special. And the brand's saying, no, I'm not comfortable with what they're going to do with our characters, with our licenses. I don't want that partnership. So towing that line of, like, what's the comfort level of the brand that we're working with, and how far can we really push them? I mean, it goes back to what we were saying before, getting that comfort in letting someone use their own voice, their own lens on the world is what's going to get you the best work. It's not always going to be the most comfortable for people.
Yeah. Danielle, did you want to add to that?
Sure. I think we've been, when we're partnering with brands, we tend to do a lot of deep diving into the brief of, like, what are we looking for specifically? What's the kind of story? So we have a better understanding of who we want to look for. I mean, there's not going to be 100% foolproof that someone that you work with hasn't maybe done something bad in the past or will do something bad in the future. But I will say, from previous worlds, I've worked in, with different big brands that have had, long-term relationships and long-term sponsorships. And that's where I think it can get a little hairier. So I think I would say the more creator partnerships, the sort of like the new way of working in a way can benefit brands, because I think more people are aware of how this works now. Whereas when you have almost like a spokesperson per se, and not even a spokesperson, but just a paid partner there, they do just end up being the brand. So I think for now, the brands have a little bit more of that safe space where they can be fluid with who they choose. I will say that for us, we use a lot of, like, art and science and trying to figure out the right folks, because, there is the point of, like, we're not going to get vegetarians to go eat meat sandwiches, or non-drinkers to work with beer brands. Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Right.
But I think for us, just trying to find the right mix of people who also want to, talk about these kinds of things. And a lot of people haven't maybe done certain things with brands, but they think these partnerships could be really opening up for them, and bring them into a new community, or even trying new things, which I think is a little bit exciting.
So we're almost out of time here. Believe it or not, we've whipped through 40 minutes. So I'd love to ask each of you maybe to take just a few seconds and share a final thought that you'd like to leave the audience with. And Anthony, I'm going to start with you, and we'll come down the road this way.
Sure.
Anthony?
So something we haven't talked about at all that I've been thinking about a lot is the role that AI plays in the future of influencers There's a huge trend in the last year. Obviously chatbots have become much bigger. We've seen Lensa and other apps come out and use digital art. And there was a huge swell of people talking about VTubers and virtual influencers for brands. And, so the question is like, what does this space look like? What does the influencer palette look like in 12 months as these technologies, as people experiment with them and figure out what works? Like, I think it starts to upend some of the ecosystem that we've seen built over the last couple of years, because, if a brand can build and run an account that draws an audience and lets them have that authentic connection and lets them behave a little differently than they would otherwise, is the need for influencers quite as strong as the need for other social channels quite as strong when they can own their own. And I've seen evidence, early days that maybe not, right? It's going to be interesting to watch.
AI definitely, it's an interesting one. Danielle, final thought.
I'm obsessed. Now I'm like that. That's a great final thought. I just also like, where can we take that? I think for us too, thinking about, we talked a little bit about it, but I do think that like niche is something that's going to be really, really interesting. I think with the rise of TikTok over the past couple of years, shorts, like there's just a huge opportunity for so many different storytelling approaches. And I think this gives creators like a really great opportunity to be able to do whatever they want. Like we're so used to thinking about these big long form stories. Like short form is such a amazing opportunity for people. And I think creators, I know there's all going back and forth. Influencers are going away, creators. I think it's just going to get bigger and bigger, especially where we're not knowing what the economy is going to be. I think investing in creators and then being an authentic storytellers will be really helpful for brands.
Great thought. Ed, final thought.
Yeah, I think back to June when a platform like Be Real wasn't even on our radar for measurement. And by September, from a time spent standpoint, it cracked the top 8 for adults 18 to 24. So prediction, the coolest platform of 2023 doesn't exist yet. It'll come out at some point during the year. And not sure if everyone has started to watch Kaleidoscope on Netflix, but very interested in what Choose Your Own Adventure television will mean for social engagement and conversation.
Awesome thoughts. Thank you. Andre, final thought.
I'm going to go off that and say platforms too. As someone, when I was working at Viacom CBS, before it was Paramount, I wanted to get on Clubhouse so bad, and the legal team was just not having it.
What's Clubhouse?
What's Clubhouse? Yeah, I've heard of him before. Her, but not being scared of new technologies and new innovative products like a new platform, right? And Be Real came out explaining that to people. It just went above their heads. I'm obsessed with Strava right now, right? It's been around for a while, but it's a running app, and there's a community of runners and athletes, health and wellness on there that I think could be really big and exciting. So I think, when it comes to new platforms, and it may be scary, it may be weird to take a risk and have one of your company members or colleagues spend time on it. And it's like, no, I'd rather just go back to focus on, Instagram ads and whatever else.
Right.
You never know what's going to be the next big thing. So I will have my prediction 2023, it's definitely going to be LinkedIn. I think more and more, you see the rise of professional creators and CMOs, CEOs, people wanting to, right now, LinkedIn Live. Event rooms. I don't know how many people hit me up after hearing I was going to be at CES. Thought that was so cool. You can scroll a hashtag and connect with people. But I've been on the LinkedIn game for a couple of years now.
Awesome. Ashley, final thought.
You guys all had great insights. I learned a lot just from being on this panel with you. So thank you. I think for me, it's just, you brought up a great point of really a really thoughtful brief. It's understanding what you're trying to accomplish. Really think about, who are you trying to reach? What are you trying to do? What's the story you want your brand to tell or your organization to tell? And for Ad Council, we want to be anywhere and everywhere that people are consuming content, whether that's a creator, whether that's a video on TikTok. So I think we have a whole department now dedicated to understanding the metaverse and Web3 and what does social good look like in that space. And it's so nascent, and we don't know what that's going to look like in 5 years and if it's really going to take hold. But for us, we want to encourage our nonprofit and government clients to take risks, to let go of the reins, to really understand your issue, and then, show up where your audiences are in a really authentic way. So thank you. Yeah.
Awesome, guys. Well, unfortunately, we're out of time, but I want to first thank you guys for all joining us this morning and paying attention and listening to our panel. And if you wouldn't mind, let's give a round of applause to Anthony, Danielle, Ed, Andre, and Ashley. Thank you, guys. And hopefully you guys have a great rest of your CES. Thank you.